My name is Gerald. I'm 78 years old. And last week, my own daughter threw me out of the house like I was a pile of garbage. You heard me right. After raising her, sacrificing my entire life, and loving her unconditionally, she kicked me out, with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. I was standing on the sidewalk, staring at the closed door of the home I built with my late wife, the same door my daughter Emma had slammed in my face. But what neither she nor her greedy husband knew was that the game wasn't over. No, not yet. Because there's something they forgot about me. I didn't survive 78 years without learning how to fight back. And before this story ends, they'll learn that sometimes the quietest revenge is the one that leaves the deepest scar. But hey, before I dive into this wild ride, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. You won't believe what happens next. Let me take you back to how this nightmare started. I wasn't always a lonely old man walking around with a suitcase. In fact, my life was once full of laughter, love, and a family I was proud of. My wife, Margaret, oh, she was my world. A woman with the kindest heart and the sharpest wit. Together, we built a beautiful home and raised 2 kids, Emma and her younger brother, Daniel. For decades, I worked as a carpenter. Every table, every chair, every floorboard in that house had my fingerprints on it. I gave everything for my family. Margaret and I dreamed of growing old together, watching our grandkids play in the backyard we built. But life doesn't always stick to the plan. Cancer came for Margaret like a thief in the night. Within a year, she was gone. I was shattered, but I held on for Emma and Daniel. Or at least, I thought I was holding on for them. At first, things were okay. Emma moved back in with me after college, said she wanted to help me cope, and for a while, it felt like a blessing. We cooked together, laughed, and shared memories of her mother. But things changed. Fast. It started when she met Mark, charming on the surface but slick like oil underneath. The kind of man who always smiled with his teeth but never with his eyes. I knew from day one something wasn't right. But Emma was blind with love. After they married, the shift was almost immediate. Suddenly, I wasn't Dad anymore. I was an obstacle. Mark started making subtle comments. Maybe Dad should consider downsizing. Doesn't make sense for an old man to have this much space. He's getting forgetful. What if he starts a fire? Emma laughed it off at first. But then the jokes turned into suggestions, and the suggestions into pressure. I tried to fight it. I really did. But when your own flesh and blood looks you in the eye and tells you, "Dad, it's time for you to go," something inside you just breaks. What hurt the most wasn't losing the house. It was realizing that somewhere along the way, I'd lost my daughter. But what they didn't know is that while they were planning my exit, I was preparing something they never saw coming. The morning they threw me out, I didn't even get a chance to grab my photo albums. 78 years of memories, erased in a heartbeat. I stood on that sidewalk, watching through the window as Mark laughed, laughing like kicking me out was some joke. Emma didn't even look back. My own daughter wouldn't meet my eyes. I dragged my suitcase down the street, wondering, where do you even go when your own family doesn't want you? But here's the part they underestimated. I've lived too long, seen too much, and survived worse than this. And while I might not be as fast as I used to be, my mind? Oh, it's sharper than ever. First stop, my old friend Walter. We served together back in the day. A man who's seen more secrets than the CIA. He opened the door, took one look at me and said, "Gerald, what the hell happened to you?" When I told him, he didn't even hesitate. "Come in, you're staying with me." Sitting in his kitchen, sipping coffee, something shifted in me. No more feeling sorry for myself, no more pity. This wasn't the end. It was the start of something bigger. "Walt," I said, leaning forward, "they think they've won. They think they've buried me. But they forgot something. I'm not just an old man. I'm the man who built that house. I know every corner, every crack, and every secret about it." He raised an eyebrow. "You're planning something, aren't you?" "You bet I was." See, what Emma and Mark never cared to remember is that the house wasn't just a house. It was tied to my name. Legally, financially. And there were things, very valuable things, that they had no idea existed. Things Margaret and I prepared, just in case life ever turned cruel. Back when Margaret was sick, we quietly transferred ownership of certain assets: gold, bonds, and a safety deposit box containing something that could change everything. But it wasn't just about money. Oh no, it was about dignity, about showing them that betraying your own blood comes with consequences. Walter leaned back and grinned. "You sly old fox, you've still got fight left in you." "You're damn right I do," I told him. "But this won't be some angry, reckless revenge. No, it's going to be quiet, careful, precise. They won't even realize what's happening until it's done." As the plan started forming in my mind, one thing became clear. If they wanted me out of that house, fine. They could have the walls and the roof, but the foundation, the real power, that was still mine, and I was about to remind them. Because trust me, what happens next? Oh, it gets wild. 3 days. That's how long it took for my sadness to turn into fire. And once that fire lit, there was no turning back. Walter and I sat at his old oak table, laying out everything I remembered. Documents, bank accounts, deeds. Most of it was still locked tight under my name. They had no idea. Emma and Mark were sitting on a throne they didn't own. Yet. "You remember the safety deposit box?" Walter asked. "Every detail." I nodded. "Margaret and I set it up 20 years ago. Gold bars, bonds, life insurance files, and one more thing." Walter's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" "A letter, written by Margaret, for Emma." Silence. Heavy, cold. See, when Margaret got sick, she knew Emma was changing. She saw it before I did. The entitlement, the coldness. So she wrote a letter, a truth bomb. Something meant for Emma's eyes the day I passed. But now, now it was going to serve a different purpose. Step 1, secure the assets. Step 2, dismantle their comfort, quietly. The next morning, I walked into the bank. The manager recognized me instantly. "Mr. Collins, always a pleasure." "Need access to box 42, please," I said, smiling like an old man running errands. 30 minutes later, I walked out with a locked briefcase. Inside, freedom, power, proof. Back at Walter's place, we opened it. Everything was intact, but there was more. Margaret had kept copies of conversations, emails, even recordings. Evidence. Proof that, for years, Mark had been manipulating Emma, convincing her to pressure me into signing over assets, selling the house, moving into elderly care. Oh, they weren't just cruel, they were calculating. And guess what? They left a paper trail a mile long. "Gerald, we could bury them with this," Walter whispered. I shook my head. "Not bury. Wake them up. Let them feel the ground shake beneath them." I called my lawyer. Old school guy, sharp as a razor. "Richard," I said, "I need everything prepared. Asset freeze, house ownership confirmation, and I want a formal eviction notice delivered to 127 Maple Lane." He paused. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." By sunset, the paperwork was ready. Emma and Mark thought they kicked me out. Oh no. Legally, they were trespassing on my property. But I wasn't done. No. Because this wasn't just about the house. This was about making sure they understood that betrayal isn't free. I drafted my own letter. Short, simple, direct. To my daughter Emma. "You chose greed over family. You chose manipulation over love. Consider this your first and last warning. The house, the assets, the foundation you stand on, are mine. But what comes next depends on you." And I sent it. As I hit send, a storm was brewing, and they had no idea it was heading straight for them. It took exactly 14 hours for my daughter to call me, crying, screaming, begging, but it was too late, way too late. The eviction notice was delivered at 9:12 a.m. sharp. By 9:15, my phone was blowing up. Missed calls from Emma. Messages like, "Dad, what is this? Are you out of your mind? You can't do this to us." Oh, Emma, can't I? At 10:04, the doorbell rang at Walter's place. I opened it to see Emma standing there, face red, mascara running. Behind her, Mark paced like a cornered rat, spitting curses under his breath. "You can't just throw us out," Emma snapped. "This is my home too." I crossed my arms. Your home? The deed is in my name. It always has been. You didn't even bother checking, did you? Mark stepped forward, puffing up like he was 10 feet tall. This is illegal. You're senile. You don't know what you're doing. I smiled. Cold. Calm. Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. I laid it all out. Every bank statement, the deed, the recorded conversations where Mark was pressuring Emma to convince the old man to sell. Their jaws dropped. They weren't prepared. Not for this. Emma collapsed onto the chair. Dad, I didn't know about those recordings. Her voice cracked. For a brief moment, I saw the little girl I once raised, the one who used to run into my arms when she scraped her knee. But that girl was buried under years of greed, manipulation, and entitlement. You stopped being my daughter the moment you let him convince you that I was a burden. I said softly. You chose him. Over me. Mark was still trying to fight. Fine, fine. Take the damn house. We'll leave. But you won't see a dime from us again. We're cutting you off. I laughed. Oh, I actually laughed. Cut me off? Son, I was never on your payroll. Everything you have came from me. I handed them both an envelope. Inside, a legal agreement. If they left quietly within 48 hours, I wouldn't press criminal charges for attempted fraud, coercion, and financial manipulation. Or, you can stay, I said, leaning in, and watch how fast the courts dismantle everything you think you own. Emma broke. Tears, real ones this time. Dad, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Didn't you? I asked. When you signed those documents Mark gave you, when you told me to pack my bags, was that not far enough? She buried her face in her hands. Mark, he just stormed out, slamming the door behind him. For a moment, it felt empty, hollow. This wasn't the revenge I imagined. It wasn't sweet. It was just sad. But it was necessary, not even close. 48 hours, that's what I gave them. And for the first time in years, I watched them scramble like scared children. Mark didn't come back that night. Coward. But Emma stayed. She sat in Walter's driveway for hours, staring at nothing. Her pride was shattered, her world collapsing, brick by brick. The next morning, she knocked on Walter's door. No screaming this time. Just silence. A kind of defeat that even I wasn't prepared to see. Dad. Her voice was hoarse. I was wrong. I don't even know who I am anymore. I stood there, arms crossed, studying her. The daughter I raised was buried deep beneath layers of entitlement, selfishness, and mistakes. But a piece of her, just a small, fragile piece, seemed to be crawling back. Tell me, Emma, when did you decide I was disposable? I asked, not out of anger, but because I needed to hear her say it. Tears welled up in her eyes. It wasn't sudden. It started small. Mark would say things. He made me believe that you were holding us back, that the house, the money, was just sitting there, wasted, and I let him convince me. She wasn't lying, not anymore. I could hear the tremor in her voice, the shame. I spent my entire life protecting you, I said quietly. When your mother died, I told myself that as long as you and Daniel were okay, I'd be okay too. I never imagined that one day you'd look me in the eyes and toss me aside like an old chair. Emma fell to her knees. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't know what to do anymore. I sighed, deep, heavy. This wasn't how I wanted my twilight years to go, but life rarely cares about what we want. I'm not doing this for revenge, Emma. I never was, I said. I did this because you needed to understand the weight of betrayal. You needed to feel what it's like when the person you trust most turns their back on you. She nodded, wiping her face. I feel it. God, I feel it. There was a long silence, the kind that stretches between generations. Then softly I spoke again. You have 24 hours left. If you leave quietly, we'll never have to speak of courts, lawyers, or police. But the house is mine. The assets are mine. And your place in my life, well, that's something you'll have to rebuild from the ground up. If you even want to. Emma nodded, standing. I understand. She turned, walking away with the slow, heavy steps of someone realizing they had burned every bridge behind them. As I watched her go, Something inside me shifted. I wasn't sure if it was relief or grief, maybe both. But one thing was clear. The chapter where they controlled my life was officially closed. And the next one, it would be written entirely on my terms. The house was silent again. For the first time in years, truly silent. No footsteps that didn't belong. No voices dripping with entitlement. Just me and the memories of everything that built these walls. When I walked back into that house, the smell hit me first. Not the warmth of home, but the staleness of neglect. Boxes half-packed, dirty dishes in the sink, rooms stripped of meaning as if they were waiting for something, or someone, to decide their fate. I moved from room to room slowly. The living room, where Margaret and I used to sit, her head on my shoulder. The kitchen, where I'd spent decades making pancakes every Sunday morning for the kids. Her old sewing corner was gone, cleared out. Gone, like her. I opened the hallway closet. There, pushed to the back behind Mark's junk, was the photo album they didn't bother to pack. I pulled it out with shaking hands, page after page. Birthdays, holidays, graduations. Margaret smiling. Emma as a child, her eyes wide with wonder. Daniel climbing a tree. Where did it all go so wrong? I sat on the old armchair, the one I built with my own hands 40 years ago, and let the weight of it all wash over me. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. Then, as I flipped through the photos, one fell out. An old note written in Margaret's handwriting. Faded, but legible. If you're reading this, it means something has gone wrong. Remember, Gerald, a house isn't just walls. It's the people inside it. And if the people forget how to love, the house means nothing. Tears burned my eyes. Her words. They hit deeper than anything Emma ever said. But something else stirred in me. A realization. Margaret was right. This house, it was never about the bricks. It was about the family. And now, the family was shattered. I spent the next few hours reclaiming the space, clearing out Mark's gadgets, Emma's piles of clutter. I boxed everything that didn't belong, every reminder of how they'd tried to erase me from my own life. Then I called Daniel, my son, the one who had quietly stayed out of the drama for years, living his own life in another state. He answered after 3 rings. Dad? Hey, son, I need to talk to you. Things have happened. Bad things. His voice softened instantly. I'm listening, Dad. Whatever it is. I'm here. For the next hour, I told him everything. From Emma's betrayal to Mark's schemes, the eviction, the confrontation, all of it. When I finished, Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Dad, I'm coming home. I closed my eyes. For the first time in weeks, a crack of light broke through the darkness. Thanks, son, I whispered. I could use some family right now. As I hung up, I looked around. The house was empty of voices, but it was no longer empty of hope. Because maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. When Daniel pulled into the driveway 2 days later, I swear, it felt like the sun came up for the first time in weeks. He stepped out of his truck, taller, stronger than I remembered. A man now, not the boy I used to teach how to ride a bike. He dropped his bag, opened his arms, and I walked straight into them. Dad, I'm so sorry you had to go through this alone, he said, squeezing me tighter than I deserved. You're here now, I replied. That's what matters. Inside the house, Daniel walked from room to room, shaking his head. Unbelievable. They really tried to erase you from this place. His jaw clenched as he opened drawers, finding boxes of my things shoved aside, replaced by Mark's nonsense. It's not just about the stuff, I said quietly. It's about what it means, what they thought they could take. Daniel sat down at the kitchen table, tapping his fingers. What's the plan now? For a moment, I wasn't sure. I had fought the first battle, won the legal war, kicked them out, but what was left? A house full of ghosts and empty chairs. I don't want to just live here alone, son, I admitted. This house feels hollow now. Daniel nodded, thoughtful. Then we don't let it stay hollow. What if we make this place a real family home again? For you, for me, for the grandkids. a place where the good memories outnumber the bad ones. I smiled for the first time in days. You'd move back? Dad, you spent your life building this house for us. Maybe it's time we build something together again. He wasn't just talking about bricks and paint. He was talking about something bigger, repairing what was broken, not the walls, but the family. But as we started planning, fixing the old guest room, repairing the backyard fence, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived. From Emma. I opened it slowly, expecting anger. Or blame. Instead, it was something else entirely. Dad, I don't expect forgiveness. I've spent the last 2 days thinking about everything I've done. I see now how blind I was. How much I let Mark twist the way I saw you. You were always there for me. And when you needed me most, I failed you. I won't ask for a second chance. I don't deserve one. But I want you to know, Mark's gone. I left him, for good. I finally saw him for what he is. I'm staying at a friend's place, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. I just hope that maybe one day, you won't hate me forever. I set the letter down. My hands shook, not from anger, but from the heavy weight of a truth I didn't know what to do with. Daniel read it over my shoulder, then looked at me. What are you thinking? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to slam the door forever. The other remembers the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest after bedtime stories. He nodded. Then maybe. It's not about deciding today. Maybe it's about watching what she does next, and seeing if she means it. For the first time in a long time, I realized not every battle needs to be fought with fire. Some are fought with patience, and this one wasn't over yet. I never imagined that watching someone try to rebuild themselves could hurt more than watching them tear you down. The days passed quietly. Daniel and I worked side by side, fixing the broken fence, repainting the walls, clearing out every last trace of Mark's arrogant presence. The house slowly began to feel like a home again, a real one. But no matter how much progress we made, that letter from Emma stayed on the kitchen counter, unopened since the day I read it. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, but I couldn't bring myself to answer it either. Then one morning, there she was, standing at the end of the driveway, alone. No Mark, no suitcase, just herself, smaller than I remembered. Or maybe just humbled. I opened the front door but didn't step outside. I just watched. She didn't wave, didn't speak. She simply knelt down and started pulling weeds from the edge of the fence. Daniel came up behind me. You want me to send her away? I shook my head. No, let's see where this goes. For hours Emma worked, quietly, her hands stained with dirt, her knees pressed into the gravel. She pulled weeds, trimmed overgrown bushes, cleaned the sidewalk. Not once did she knock. Not once did she ask to come in. By midday, Daniel walked out with a bottle of water. No words, just handed it to her. She took it, nodded, kept working. By sunset, the yard looked better than it had in years. She stood, wiped her hands on her jeans, looked at the house, and then at me, still standing at the doorway. I'm not here to ask for anything, she finally said. I needed to do something right. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. I know words won't fix what I did, she continued, her voice trembling. I let someone poison my mind against the only person who's ever truly loved me. I can't undo that, but I can show you that I'm not that person anymore. If you ever think there's a place for me in your life again, you'll let me know. Then she turned, walked back down the driveway. I stood there long after she was gone, staring at the freshly cleaned yard, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Confusing, painful hope. Daniel came to my side. She's trying, Dad. Yeah, I whispered. For the first time in years, she really is. But forgiveness isn't something you hand out like spare change. It's something earned, brick by brick, just like the house I built. And time would tell if she was ready to rebuild what she broke. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's 1,000 small decisions, made one day at a time. The days that followed were strange, quiet but heavy. Emma didn't come back the next day, or the day after that. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was relieved or disappointed. Daniel and I carried on. We replaced the broken porch swing, the same one where Margaret and I spent countless evenings watching the sunset. We cleared out the attic, finding boxes of forgotten memories, old toys, Christmas decorations, letters from a time when the world felt smaller, safer. Then, on the fourth morning, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I opened the door and there she was again, Emma. But this time she wasn't alone. She held something in her arms, a tray. On it, a fresh loaf of bread, jam, butter, and a folded napkin. "Dad," she said softly, I'm not here to talk or ask for anything. I remembered you used to love Mom's homemade bread. So, I made some." She said it on the steps. "If you don't want it, that's okay. But I wanted to leave something good behind." She turned to leave, but for the first time since all this started, I stopped her. "Wait." She froze, slowly turned back. "Sit," I said, pointing to the steps. She obeyed. No questions, no pushback. We sat in silence for a while, the smell of the bread filling the air between us. Finally I spoke. "You know, your mother used to say, forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt you. It's for the one who carries the weight of the hurt. I never understood it, until now." Emma blinked, eyes glassy. "I carry it, Dad, every second." I nodded. "Good. You should, for a while at least. But maybe not forever." She let out a shaky breath. "I don't know how to fix this." "You don't," I replied. "Not with words, not with bread, not even with apologies. You fix it by showing up again and again and again until one day, it's real." She nodded. "Then I'll keep showing up, even if I have to sit on these steps for the rest of my life." Daniel opened the door behind me, watched for a moment, then, quietly, without a word, he stepped aside and left the door open. I didn't say anything. Neither did Emma. But the message was clear. The door wasn't locked anymore, not fully open, not yet, but not closed either. For the first time in a long time, maybe, just maybe, this family had a fighting chance. It's strange how something as simple as sitting on a porch can feel heavier than a courtroom, heavier than any fight we ever had. Emma showed up again the next morning. No bread this time, no gifts, just herself. She sat on the porch steps without saying a word, picking at the loose threads of her jeans, occasionally glancing at me through the window, but never forcing anything. Daniel and I carried on with our day, fixing, cleaning, laughing, something we hadn't done together in years. But every time I glanced toward the front of the house, there she was, sitting, waiting. By midday, Daniel walked past me, nudging my shoulder. "You know, stubbornness definitely runs in this family." I grunted. No argument there. But then something shifted. As I was tightening a bolt on the garden gate, I heard a soft voice behind me. "Need a hand?" I turned. Emma, standing there, not looking me in the eyes, but not looking away either. I paused. A long pause. Then I handed her the wrench. "You remember how to hold this?" A shaky laugh. "Let's find out." For the next hour we worked, side by side, mostly in silence, but the kind of silence that doesn't hurt, the kind that mends. After tightening the last bolt, she sat back, wiping sweat from her brow. "You know, I forgot how much you used to make us do this stuff. Fix things, build things. Thought it was annoying back then." I chuckled. "Wasn't about the fence, kid. Never was. It was about teaching you how to fix what's broken. Even when it's hard, even when it's messy." Her hands trembled a little. "Guess I forgot that lesson too." We both knew we weren't talking about the fence anymore. Daniel brought out lemonade without saying a word, just set it down between us and sat. The three of us, sitting in a triangle of memories, regrets, and slowly mending hope. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice lower now. "Honest, I signed the divorce papers yesterday. Mark's out of my life, for good." I nodded. "Took you long enough." She smiled. A real one. Small, fragile, but real. "Yeah, took me too long to remember who I was before him." Silence followed. Heavy, but not painful this time. Then I said the words I never imagined I'd be ready to say. "You're welcome to stay for dinner." Her eyes widened. "Really?" Doesn't mean everything's fixed, I clarified. It means the door's cracked open. Whether it stays that way depends on what you do next. She nodded. Fair. That night we ate together for the first time in years. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was something. Something more powerful than any revenge, any court battle, any eviction notice. It was the beginning of what could be, the last goodbye to the past, and maybe the first hello to something better. Forgiveness. I used to think it was a gift you gave someone else. Turns out, it's something you give yourself. The following weeks were nothing short of strange. The house, once filled with bitterness and betrayal, now echoed with something different. Not quite joy, not yet peace, but something softer, something alive. Emma didn't ask to move back in, and I didn't offer. But every morning, there she was, showing up, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with tools, sometimes with nothing but her hands and her willingness to help. The three of us, me, Daniel, and Emma, rebuilt the garden Margaret once loved so much. We planted roses where the weeds had grown tall. We repainted the porch swing. We even repaired the old birdhouse Daniel made as a child. And with every nail hammered, with every shovel of dirt, something shifted. One afternoon, Emma sat beside me, handing me a cup of coffee. Dad, I know I can't erase what I did. I won't ever pretend it didn't happen. But if there's a way to be your daughter again, I'll spend the rest of my life trying. I stared at her for a long moment. And then, something inside me finally let go. Not the memory, not the lesson, but the weight. I reached over, placed my weathered hand over hers. You were always my daughter, Emma. You just forgot for a while. Her face crumbled. Tears. But this time, not from guilt, from relief. Daniel stood nearby, smiling softly. Took the long way around. But we got here. And he was right. The house, it wasn't just wood and nails. It wasn't just property or inheritance. It was a symbol of love, of pain, of mistakes made, and lessons learned. Emma sold her apartment. She didn't move in with me, but she moved nearby, close enough to show up, to be present, to be family again. As for Mark, gone, a ghost in the rearview mirror of our lives. No one missed him, not even a little. One evening, sitting on the porch swing with Daniel and Emma on either side, watching the sun dip below the trees, I realized something. This wasn't the house Margaret and I built anymore. It was something better. It was the house we rebuilt, together, and as the wind rustled through the fresh roses and the laughter of my children echoed against the walls, I smiled, because in the end, revenge was never the real victory. The real victory was turning the last goodbye into a brand new beginning.